I knew that any business success that I would have, it wasn't going to come from any tactics or business strategy. It was going to come from just me operating from a good place. I've learned that the health of my business is a direct reflection of my mental health.
Hey guys, I have an amazing guest today that I'm excited to meet for the first time. He's a doctor of physical therapy, a jiu-jitsu blue belt. He's launched multiple businesses and has relocated from New Jersey to Mexico with his lovely wife. Together, they organize very authentic ayahuasca retreats. Welcome to the show, David Zwoboda.
Man, Mike, thank you so much for having me, dude. I'm excited to be here.
My man, we had some fun off camera for me trying to get that down phonetically. I just want the audience to know that my tongue is just getting unwound right now, trying to pronounce not only your last name, but the retreats. Really excited to have you, brother. Thank you for being here. I know Cordi, your wife, or we call her your partner in crime, is not able to join us today, but she's very much with us in story, and I'm going to have you really fill that part of this in. I just want everyone to know before we get started that David is, you're all over on social media. You have a great podcast as well. I'm going to have that all linked in the show notes and clickable, so nobody has to try typing your name in or spelling it correctly. It's there clickable for everybody. So when you want more information, tuning in, guys, thank you for being here with us on YouTube, and also anybody who's tuning in on the audio versions as well. We appreciate you being here. David, what I'd love you to do is start the story off, because I know there was a moment in time when you felt like you weren't on purpose. You kind of lost your way, your direction a little bit, and you had to kind of redirect your heart and your spirit, and it led you into the person you are today. Of course, life is not a straight line. It's not always just an up arrow or even a diagonal arrow to where you want to go. It's a lot of times a zig and zag. So share with us that moment when you just felt like you had to get out of that kind of corporate landscape and into what you're doing today. I know, share as much of that as you'd like.
Sure. Thank you for bringing this up right off the bat. And I can dive right into like the exact moment sort of that this switch flipped for me. It was the culmination of my entire life going to school, pursuing this doctor of physical therapy degree that I became. I was working in a clinic, and I was driving home from getting groceries one night. So it was after work. I'd gone to the gym. I went to the grocery store, got groceries. I was driving home and thinking to myself, planning what I was going to do, and I had just enough time to unload the groceries, make dinner, put up a load of laundry, go to sleep so that I could sleep like just 8 hours, wake up, go to the gym before work, go to work all day, come home, fold my laundry, and do it all again the next day. And it was literally just this moment I had, this flash of insight of like, holy shit, is this all that my life is about to be for the next 40 years? So that I can retire old and crippled and like not able to actually do anything else, right? I had just enough time to do the bare minimum to survive. And I was, like I said, I was driving home from getting groceries, and I was thinking like, man, I could just nudge the steering wheel a couple inches to the left, and like, I don't have to deal with all of that anymore. And, so I wasn't like actively suicidal. I wasn't going to take action on that, but it was...
Right.
It was probably the first time in my life.
The fact that it was on your head, though, David, I just want to interject real quick. I don't like to interrupt on the show, but or ever. But no, I think there's a lot of people head nodding, including myself, who come from a place of being on that hamster wheel. And it's not that you had like a horrible life. It's not like you came home, and some people are in abusive situations, and that's horrible. But there's also this feeling of almost being dead inside when you know that all you're doing is basically surviving to get to the next day of redundancy. And it does make you wonder of like, when you start to lose purpose, maybe not everybody has a steering wheel moment, but I definitely know there's moments where I've asked myself, like, at the end of the day, what is my purpose in the past? I've asked that until I had to recenter myself. So what snapped you out of it?
What snapped me out of it, honestly, the start of the pandemic was a wonderful thing for me to force me to change, because I was working in this clinic job, and like you said, like nothing in my life was that bad. Most physical therapists would have been envious of my environment, envious of the setup there, but I hated it. It was soulless to me. And so pandemic started, they shut down our clinic, so I got laid off for a few weeks. And I'm sitting at home just wondering, how am I going to fill my time now? And I realized no part of me wanted to go back to that clinic job. So they offered me the job back and I turned it down. And at that point in time, I was thinking about starting just a little side business of taking care of jiu-jitsu athletes. And I realized, well, shit, that's what I actually want to do. Why would I go back to the clinic and do my passion on the side? Why don't I just go all in on that? And so that was the start of my company, Ground Game Physio, where I work online to take care of jiu-jitsu athletes and coach them to be healthy and train for a longer lifetime on the mats. And since then, since the start of the pandemic, I've turned down that job. I've turned down a clinic directorship position where I would probably be making a couple $100,000 a year right now, but I would be serving a system that I don't believe in and that I absolutely hate. And I want to see that system burn to the ground. And so I knew that I was going to put my life energy into something. So why not put it into something that I deeply believe in, something that I think the world needs, something that I think actually helps people, instead of sacrificing all of that to take a job that would make me more money than I'm making right now.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely commendable. And again, I believe there's a lot of people tuning in right now that are faced with that. They're either in the early stages of making that decision where they're choosing passion over the payday, at least immediate payday. But over a long period of time, you have to ask yourself if you're physically healthier, mentally healthier, on purpose and serving. And the answer obviously is if it supplements income, it's a no-brainer. But even if it gets you in a place of like, maybe you don't have that same dollar amount and the cost of living in New Jersey, let's say, and you're making, your $100,000, but you're working at a physical therapy job that you absolutely don't believe in, opposed to, move to Mexico, maybe find something that's a little bit leaner as far as roof over your head, and you're serving people all across the world. And I don't know if that's even true. I'm just kind of speaking in general for people tuning in. Like,
it is.
Maybe you live a little leaner while you're working on your passion. You don't have to have the budget of $100,000, job, right? And then you can continue to do what you're doing and build up a client base over time. And then the great entrepreneurial stories usually end with the fact that they're way in a better spot now, because when you bet on yourself, a lot of times you come out way ahead. Let's say 5-10 years from now, and you look back. I just helped launch a show called 2000% Raise because John Sarasani, the host, he's done that. He actually went from making a decent payday, miserable, to paying himself 2,000% more by becoming an entrepreneur. So it's a really cool story.
I mean, that's the dream, and that's the idea.
But I'm going to let you take it back from here. So talk about your clients that you have and how that really fuels you up.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said is completely like spot on. We moved to Mexico because it would bankrupt me to move out of my parents' house into New Jersey at the time. Since starting this, I've experienced being the brokest that I've ever been, but also the happiest that I've ever been. Like you said, so I work remotely with these athletes. I've had clients from Egypt and Sweden. Most of them, to be fair, are in America. But I am seeing real changes in these people's lives. I've helped people avoid getting surgery that would set them back years. I've helped people who thought that they were going to have to quit jiu-jitsu, the one thing that makes them happy and takes care of their mental health. They thought they were going to have to quit because of something their doctor said to them. And now, they're training harder than ever. This one guy just got his brown belt when he thought he was going to have to quit last year. And If anyone listening trains jiu-jitsu, they're a crazy person like me, and they know how important it is in our lives. When I'm speaking with these athletes, they come to me for their knee pain or their neck pain or something, but really what they're coming to me for is to not have to step away from this sport that they love and that actually serves every other aspect of their lives. When someone's injured and they can't train, that's taking such a toll on their mental health. That takes a toll on their family life. That takes a toll on their business. And so I'm not just giving people, a fix for their knee pain. I'm giving people a way to continue this thing that serves their entire life in this positive way. So it is extremely rewarding, extremely fulfilling. But we don't have to just talk about the jiu-jitsu stuff this whole time. I know we got other ground to cover.
it's really cool the way that you just described it. I feel like it's kind of unlocking people, right? They come to you with either a pain or a problem or something. You help unlock it so then they can get to the next level in their life, whether that's business, personal, professional. The thing about health is it ties into everything. You need it for
Totally.
both personal and obviously business, personal and business, but also, it's like mind, body, spirit. I know you're connected with that. Obviously, Cordi is connected with that on a high level. She does yoga, meditation. She's a consultant in that space. So share a little bit more about how you guys met and kind of came together as a force.
Yeah, man, this is a cool story. So we met at an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica. So for those listening, ayahuasca is a traditional plant medicine. It's been used by indigenous cultures in South America for basically as long as we have recorded history. They've been using this plant. And this, it sort of coincided with right after I left my job, started my own company. I moved back home with my parents and I was broke. I didn't have many clients. I was living with my parents. I kind of felt like a failure. I felt like a loser for a while at first. Yeah. And I knew that any business success that I would have, it wasn't going to come from any tactics or business strategy. It was going to come from just me operating from a good place, right? I've learned that the health of my business is a direct reflection of my mental health, right? And so I knew that I was in a low place, really, and I knew that if I was going to be successful, I had to do something about it. And I'd had practices in the past like journaling, meditating, things like this that served me. And during the pandemic, just like everyone else, all of those things fell away. And so just like, how people would sign up for a marathon if they want to get in shape and now they have like a deadline of like, all right, I have to start running, I have to start training because I'm going to do this. And if I don't, I'm going to have a really bad time when that day finally comes.
Yeah, it's like forced decision kind of.
Exactly.
Absolutely. They kind of force themselves to make that decision to then the action that follows that they know they're going to ramp up for that event. Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I signed up for an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica. And I knew that if I didn't start getting my life in order, I was going to have an awful, awful experience. But on the flip side, I knew if I started getting back into journaling, getting back into meditating, getting back into goal setting and taking action, I knew that it could be a really transformative experience. So I gave myself that deadline to sort of start getting my shit together. And my wife was working at that retreat center as a yoga teacher there. And so that was how we met. And we didn't talk very much there because part of the reason I went was also to change my relationship patterns. And so I go there and I see this beautiful woman and I'm forcing myself to not look at her because I'm like, this isn't what I'm here for. I'm here to work on me. I'm not here to meet girls, right?
We know who won that battle.
Yeah,
you had
exactly.
the good, yeah, the devil and the angel's like, no, you're just here to be, to better yourself. And the devil's like, are you kidding me? Look at this girl. Like, go talk to her.
Exactly, man. So, nothing happened there. We stayed in touch. I moved back to New Jersey. She went back. She was staying in California, actually, after that. And we just stayed in touch. We were talking for like 6 months, maybe, just through text messages, voice messages. And then to make a long story short, she was gifted a car from a friend who worked at a car dealership in Chicago. And so the deal was she had to fly to Chicago and pick up this car and drive it back to California. And so we decided that our first date was going to be meeting up in Chicago, picking up this car and going on a 10-day road trip across the country together after not seeing each other.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So that was our first date.
How long? And you've only known each other you only knew each other from the retreat. So basically it's kind of still pretty cold. That's awesome though. That's like, I mean, that's super scary because it could have went really bad. I mean, you meet some people and you're like, after 10 minutes, you just know it's not right. So the good news is it worked out and you guys probably had some of your best 10 days of your entire lives. It sounds like you're smiling thinking about it. So that's awesome, man. Awesome. I wish I got to meet Cordi. So I'd like to maybe have you guys on together at some point down the road. That would be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That would be great. You would love her. And she brings a very good perspective on this just because she's been steeped in the plant medicine work for so much longer than I have. But yeah, so that was our first date. And like you said, you might know that it would be terrible right off the bat, but we knew that it was meant to be right off the bat.
When it's magic, you know right away. And I was just teasing you, obviously, about the decision of talking to someone. When you know, and that's the only way you can explain it. And I do believe in love at first sight. There's a magic behind it. It's not just an attractiveness that does it. There's more to it. You can tell the way someone carries themselves, its body language. How is she interacting with? If she's teaching her students, is she being respectful? All kinds of stuff. Your first interactions with her. You knew you wouldn't have went to Chicago was it Chicago you said, to drive all the way back?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that if you felt that there wasn't magic there. And she wouldn't agree to have some guy spend 10, 12 days with her that she didn't want to be with. So obviously that was a good sign that you got the invite. That's a cool story, man. I love doing this podcast because I get to hear stories that I never knew, like even researching you guys. I never knew that, so that's really a cool story. What I'd like to do, David, is I know there's more to what you want to share, and I want to hit on some questions when we come back from the break real quick. A little bit more about how you can help out some early stage entrepreneurs and kind of push through. I've also been in that situation where I had to stay with family and kind of with my tail between my legs a little bit after I left corporate America, which I was highly successful as far as income, and then had to kind of start fresh again as an entrepreneur, 100% commission situation, and it was very humbling. But when you know in your heart, just like when you met Cordi, you just knew she was the one. Well, when you know and bet on yourself, there's nobody can tell you any differently. You may waver a little bit in confidence over time. It's definitely a humbling hit, but that doesn't mean that you stop, and you didn't stop, and you pushed through. So we're going to take a quick 2-minute timeout to give some love to our sponsors, and we'll be right back with David. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with David, and he was just sharing his story before the break about how he got started and how he pushed through. He's doing so many cool things. He's launched multiple businesses with Cordi, moved across, literally like across the globe, if you think about it, really from New Jersey to Mexico. That's quite the hike. Kind of started fresh doing these retreats, which is really interesting. And And I'd love to learn a little bit more about like kind of the plant-based living and what you guys do. I know there's like medicinal practices you guys are all about, and that part I don't know a lot about. So I'm sure some of our audience members are really, no pun intended, green when it comes to that. And I am too. So please give me like the 101 on how you guys got introduced to this and why is this a big part of your life? I want to know the why behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned before about how I discovered that my business, my success in business was a complete reflection of my mental state, like my mental well-being, my belief in myself, right? And I feel like I saw you nodding your head when I was talking about that. And I think any entrepreneur has experienced that. Whether you knew it at the get-go or not, you've come face to face with the fact that your business success is a reflection of how well you're doing as a person internally. And in business, in entrepreneurship, we're faced with overcoming all of these limiting beliefs of maybe when you're starting out, like, oh, no one would want to work with me. Who cares about what I have to say? And you have to get through that in order to actually help people to have an impact and ideally to make money in doing so, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think so often we get stuck with these self-limiting beliefs, whether it's through maybe a bad relationship with your parents and instilled that in you, maybe bad relationships romantically instilled that, or just society, your teachers, your friends, things that you've seen. If someone's lived their whole life with getting these messages that, they're not good enough, that no one really cares what they have to say, that no one would ever really want to work with them, how are you ever going to be successful if that's the starting point in your head? If you don't even believe in what you have to offer the world, how is anyone ever going to buy it, right? Of course, psychedelics and plant medicine is not the only way to overcome that. Obviously, I'm not saying this is the one way to do it. But what these plant medicines offer is a really powerful way to kind of suppress these voices in your head and allow you to choose to operate from a new place. So we can dive into the neuroscience and neurochemistry of all this stuff, but to keep it at a sort of 30,000 foot view, what these plant ceremonies offer is a way to sort of press reset on some of the programming that you're living with in your brain and give you a chance to intentionally choose to come from a new place, right? So for me, that when I felt like a complete loser before, I looked at the landscape on Instagram, just as an example, and I saw a few other really big accounts doing similar things. And I thought, why would anyone care what I have to say? There's already people doing this. Mm-hmm. They're expressing everything more eloquently. Anything I have to say has already been said by somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. And so what working with ayahuasca offered was basically realizing my own worth, realizing that A, I'm good enough, and B, people actually do care what I have to say. And since embracing that, I can't even tell you how many stories I've heard of people who just from interacting with my content, my free stuff on Instagram, has changed their lives, has changed the course of their life. Some people have pursued physical therapy just because of the stuff that I've said. And I never in a million years would have put that out there in the universe before.
Yeah, I want to pause for a second, David. That's so incredible, man. I will say this, one thing I've learned from doing my podcast, over 150 episodes as we record this, started in 2019, is the content that seems to do the best, right? And I'm not a vanity metric person. I try not to get consumed by that as much, but I do care about what's actually being consumed from a standpoint of what's hitting people's hearts. I want to know, there's a purpose behind what we're doing, right? And the stuff that seems to resonate the most, it's not always, the biggest name guest or like the biggest marquee situation that I find myself in. It's someone who just opens up their heart and shares the story, and I'll get a message, whether it's a personal text message or look at Apple Podcasts review, and someone shares a really personal story. One gentleman said he pulled over the side of the road. He was in tears when he heard someone open up about being bullied when they were younger. And this was like a successful guy that was running a business, and he shared this really vulnerable moment with me, and it just reminded me of because I felt that same thing, and I don't know if I've ever said it on my show yet, but I've absolutely felt that where And there's so many entrepreneurs with podcasts. They're doing great. They're already in like chapter 8 out of their 10 chapter book. I'm in chapter 1 or 2. And so why wouldn't someone just dive into their content, right? Yeah, it's easy to tell yourself that. But the thing is, like, everyone else was a chapter 1 person in the beginning too. And you can be in chapter 1 and still absolutely have people resonate with your story. And you may even be able to connect with someone better than someone who's quote unquote more polished, because someone may come to you and just be like, man, I just feel your heart, the messaging, and then they share with you, right? And you're going to have your own personal experience and ears and kind of lens of looking at it. So I think it's beautiful to remember about worthiness and connect yourself. The other thing about what you're talking about, the psychedelics, that I still don't know a ton about is the fact that it recentered you. I thought that's cool, and started you from kind of a fresh spot where we do have the world coming at us and culture coming at us and expectations coming at us, family, business, personal, Instagram, keeping up with the Joneses, running through our soul, and everybody's literally scrolling. They're cooking dinner, they're on their a lot of people they're in the bathroom, they're on their phone, and they just don't get away from it. And so what you're talking about is getting back to your core, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that. What's the experience like, and how can people get more information from you on that?
Yeah, I love where you went just with how disconnected we are because we're seeking connection kind of in the wrong places. We're seeking this fulfillment from scrolling through our phones instead of seeking actual human connection to the land we live on, the food that we eat, the people that we're in community with. So when my wife and I take people down to Peru on these retreats that we organize, I just want to be clear, I'm sure most people don't even know too much about this, but we don't lead the retreats. We don't serve this medicine. We work with indigenous people who've been doing this in their culture for thousands of years. All we do is connect Westerners to these folks down there.
Yeah.
And so when we bring people down, it is a total disconnect from quote unquote the real world. But this world is so much more real. There's no internet. The power comes from a generator that they run 2 hours every night. You wake up to the sounds of birds and you fall asleep to the sound of the jungle. And man, the jungle is loud, dude.
Sounds so good, yeah.
And you're with this family, this indigenous tribe. They're cooking you every meal. Their children are just running around playing with the animals, playing with sticks, because that's all that they've got. And it's shocking almost how happy these people are with quote unquote nothing, right? They don't have the latest iPhone. Their clothes are I mean, they make some of their own clothes, but they're not buying new things all the time. By our standards, they're the most poor people you can imagine, and they're
not wearing a
$100
outfit
most fulfilled,
or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. And they know who they are, and they know what they actually need. So they won't buy anything. You can't sell them something that they don't need because they know who they are, right? They know what they actually need to be happy, and that's just their community, their land, their traditions. It's not feasible for most of us to live that way. I get it. We're in a modern society. I'm using $1,000 worth of equipment just to talk to you right now, right? But what we can gain is a little bit of that perspective and take that back into our life with us, right? And we can take that perspective and now use that to go forward, where we're not seeking this distraction through Instagram. I told you when I met Cordi, I avoided her for a while because I was there to change part of why I was there to change my relationship behaviors. Because what I would do is I would date like multiple girls at the same time and create this drama in my own life. So then I would distract myself with that, because telling my friends about all these girls I was seeing was easier than working on my business, right? Creating this drama was easier than sitting and meditating and confronting my own demons in my head. I was using it to distract myself. And you mentioned how this sort of recentered me. It refocused what's actually important. And that was committing to my business, committing to my own self-growth. And now I've learned committing to just my wife. I used to think that I wouldn't ever get married because I wouldn't find just one person. But I've realized how much it actually simplifies your life when you choose one thing and commit 100% to that. All of these distractions just fall away. and you realize how much time you were wasting on it, and it allows you to focus on what's important, which for me is building these businesses so I can help people as much as possible, so I can make my own living, so I can buy a farm in the middle of nowhere and start my own family and raise children and chickens and goats, because that's what I actually really want to do. And so yeah, when we talk about recentering, it's just a refocusing on what's actually important.
Oh, it's so good, man. Appreciate you elaborating on that, brother. Like that just hits me like, I love that. That's why I do this show. Like I get amped up when I hear someone who connects back with their core and then they take action on it. They don't just sit around. But you also have been extremely vulnerable in sharing the stories. I know there's people who are still stuck in that kind of distracting themselves with certain things. I feel like I'm always busy with my business too. And a lot of times I feel like if I properly delegated and simply focus on the things I need to take care of, and that can create more personal time so I can enjoy more of the other things in life. You mentioned for you, it's having that farm, having the animals, having kind of that situation. I have my own versions of that, different things that I love. I love being out in, to me, it's that beachfront property. I just love being one kind of with the ocean out in front of me, and it just kind of represents just like endless possibilities, and it just feels so fresh and clean. It doesn't feel like there's, the inner workings of like a busy city. It's just, I try to be like more of that remote, like you're talking about being out in the jungle. That is something that I really aspire to be living more in those moments than caught up in those little things. And the thing I feel like too, I want to just hit on two more points, is that when we're caught up in all of it, it feels like we can't escape it. Like we have so many things to do. We're busy. We have the multiple businesses that you talked about. But if you really set yourself up, my goal is to set myself up where my team can really run things with or without me. So when I need to go to those retreats, in your situation and my situation might just be kind of like a mini vacation, 3-4 day, just recentering every quarter or something. At least start there and be intentional about it. Like have intentional moments about getting back to the core. The second part I wanted to mention is like the thing I love about you meeting Cordi and not intentionally going there to meet somebody is that when I was in a situation where I found myself kind of like looking for the next person I was going to either date or be with in a long-term relationship, I found that I was trying to get myself to a level or a place that I think someone would be attracted to. The situation, that the person, act like I'm like a 10 out of 10 as far as having life together. And a friend of mine reminded me that like, hey, the right partner for you is going to be attracted to you in your current situation, whether you're at a 3 or a 6 or a 7 or wherever you're at in your journey. And they're going to love watching you on this trajectory. And it sounds like when you and Cordi met each other, you loved each other at where you're at, and then you brought each other up together. And that just like, I get goosebumps. Just, I'm a sucker for that. Just people finding each other, falling in love with that current version. And look, it's not like she came back to you after she met you at a retreat. She sees that you're successful and then you have all your businesses and stuff going. Now all of a sudden your phone rings. Hey, it's Cordi. Remember me? And you're like, oh, now you want to talk to me. That just doesn't feel right, So I think that's really cool. We have time, unfortunately, for one more question, but it's a big one. And I'd like you to take a minute or two on this one here. Is we talked about writing a book a couple times, and I want to talk about it kind of the hyperbole of the whole situation is like you're the author and protagonist, right, in your own life story. And you get to write the ending, and God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous life. You're looking back on it, you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
What would my legacy be? It's interesting because you talked about, all right, so if I'm the protagonist of this book, what I always think about, though, especially in my business and as I'm helping people, is how can I make other people the protagonist, and how am I just the guide that connects them from where they are now to where they want to be, and helps them avoid this failure that they're trying to mitigate. They're trying to not fall into this trap. They're trying to get to this higher place. So I guess my legacy would be that of helping thousands and thousands of other people write a successful story. I don't feel like I need too much. I want my little farm. I want my little slice of like reality. I want some cows to drink some raw milk, right? I don't need too much, but I want to help other people just avoid their own personal hell and get to their own personal slice of paradise. My life has always been organized in an effort to be of service to other people. And that right now, I mean, that's what my entire spiritual path is about. And the more that I can do that, the more fulfilled that I feel. And the more I think I'm just being a force for good in the universe. I think we live in a particularly dark, evil time. Maybe we're just more aware of it than ever. But I just want to do my own little part to just uplift people, to reduce the net amount of suffering in the universe and improve the net amount of gratitude and joy and happiness that other people experience. That's all I really want from my life.
That's beautiful, man. And I want you to know that's actually why I wanted you on the show, and I requested you on the show, talking to our mutual friend Todd Armstrong, who actually introduced us a couple months ago, and that's how crazy busy we both have been. We're finally getting together today for the first time, and when he shared your story and some information about you and Cordi, I was like, yeah, let's get him on. Like, connect me as quickly as you can, because you bring something to the table that we haven't talked about yet on the show. Psychedelics is the first conversation out of 150 plus,
Wow.
and you bring that entrepreneurial journey. You got a great partnership with Cordi, and that story is inspiring to me personally and to our audience. And then how you just articulated your legacy. Obviously, this is not something you thought about today for the first time. You're intentionally being a tour guide for uplifting others, and you're doing that through your businesses, you're doing that through your social media channels, being a guest on podcasts. And take 30 seconds to promote your own show real quick. What can we learn from you when we tune into your show? And what is it called again?
It's called The Way Broadly, which comes from a quote from this old samurai. He said, "When you know the way broadly, you see it in all things." And so that was kind of the idea. Was I know that training jujitsu is like a mirror for every other aspect of my life. And so I wanted to be able to just, I'm so passionate about jujitsu, I find metaphors in everything related to jujitsu. So if I can talk to someone and just pull out whatever it is that they're passionate about, I know that we're going to find a lot of mutual ground, because it just comes down to the human experience and what it actually means to be human and where we derive meaning from. So that's what that podcast is all about. It's also turned into an exploration on various psychedelic topics with Cordi. So if anyone's interested in learning more, we cover a lot of that stuff on these like mini episodes that we do. So that's my podcast. And then if folks are interested in more about the plant medicine work, I mean, we'll link this in the show notes, but we've got one company that organizes these retreats, and we've got another company we founded as a nonprofit organization to directly support these indigenous people. Because there's a lot of problems with the Amazon rainforest and indigenous people kind of being not treated very well throughout the course of history. So we're trying to do our part to make sure that we are in a fair agreement with these people, that we respect their land and their culture, and we give as much back as we take from them.
And speaking of respect, man, I have a ton of respect for you. One of the beautiful things of doing a podcast, I got to meet so many incredible people over the last couple of years. And again, we met for the first time. That's pretty rare. Usually people I have on the show, I kind of know them. I know their story. We meet either networking or in a mastermind setting or something. Maybe I've read their book and I ask them to be on the show. I literally didn't know much about, the depth of your story today. And all I can tell you is I respect the heck out of you. What you've done from start to today. And I know that you're still getting started with a lot. The fact that you see people who need help, you help them, you don't blink, right? You act. And that's a huge telling sign of someone with great character. I have a ton of respect for you. You're leaving me inspired. Like, I'm more inspired now than I've been in most of my interviews because of the action you're taking. And it's led by your heart, brother. It's not something that you're looking for 100,000 likes on your Instagram reels. Like, that's not what's driving you. You're actually being driven by your heart, and that I love. And that's why I just love these stories that are coming through on Mic'd Up every day, or every Monday, I should say, that these episodes come out. And you're someone who I'm going to continue to follow your story. I'm going to continue to follow Cordi's story together. Get you back on the show again. You can let me know about more retreats that you've been successful with. But absolutely love your story, and respect the heck out of you, like I just said. And I want you to pause after we end this call and part ways for the day at least, and reflect on the fact of your purpose again. Remember, like, I know we don't take a lot of time to pat ourselves on the back, and it's not even that. It's just remember how far you've come. You know, you've gone through some tough times living with the parents and all this, that whole situation, but you did it for a reason, and now you can see the fruits from it. So this is amazing. This conversation was a lot of fun. I look forward to the next conversation, brother. Don't be a stranger, but you know what to do. Be great and be grateful. You see it right here, guys, mic'dupmerch.com. All of the proceeds, any money that comes through mic'dupmerch.com gets pushed forward, just like what David's doing to help people out. We do the same thing there as well. I don't make a penny off of any of the merchandise. It all goes to great causes. So I just want to say thank you for being with us today. And David, this was a fantastic interview, and appreciate your time as well.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words. You made me well up a little bit there. And, I look at you. You're someone a little more established than I am, for sure, in the podcast space. You've been doing this longer. You've got a successful podcast. So to hear that from you, man, it actually really does mean a lot. And it is easy, I guess, to lose sight of how far you have come and how much good you have done when you're kind of in the weeds of like, how much money am I going to make this month? What are we going to do about rent this month? That kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you saying that and giving me that perspective on my own story and my own life. Thank you, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. The most important thing someone can have is a strong compass, because without that, they're leading in the wrong direction. You felt it in the past. You know what that feels like to be going in the wrong direction. And the fact that you're really, it's no surprise that you spend a lot of time being focused on your core, and you guys spend a lot of time recentering yourself and however you get yourself in that headspace. It's a beautiful thing, because it's no surprise that you're doing amazing in your life. And guess what? Financial success, true success, it's how you feel at the end of the day. Nobody wants to be that guy at the end of the story who has loads of cash in his bank account, no family, no happiness, no friends, nobody even knows he's there, and passes away miserably in a mansion at the end of the road. No one even knew he was there. So you're giving back, you're doing the right things, and your story is still moving, and there's so much more coming. So I can talk to you all day long. I really appreciate this. And guys, remember, go to the show notes, check out David's podcast, all the links, social media, and continue to follow his story as well, because I can see where it's going. This is absolutely incredible. Thank you guys so much, and look forward to seeing you next week. I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mic'd up. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mic'd up. You can give as little as $1 per month, or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mic'duppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.